welcome to Beyond the Veil with Norman Meredith.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're back with another episode of Beyond the Veil with me, your host, Norman, and in the background is my producer and occasional co-host, Ed Lease.
How you doing?
And tonight we're once again coming from Easley, South Carolina. We're using the alternative studio again tonight, and we've got an interesting topic to talk to y'all about tonight, and I have to thank my friend D.A. Roberts for posting this on Facebook, and I seen it and I said, this might be an interesting subject. Ed, drop that first photo we have about the Enfield Horror. Now, this is what we're going to talk about. This creature that started to be showing up around April 1973, where a young boy is attacked by a strange creature in his Enfield, Illinois backyard, and soon after another family encounters the odd creature that tries to break into their house. And what people want to know is, what was this horror that stalked the people near the Enfield Railroad train station, substation, whatever it is, a little shack on the side of the road, for the trains. But there was a creature there for a couple of years that was stalking the people. It was sort of a lizard-looking thing. It was about let's see here. What do I got for measurements? It doesn't exactly say, but it was a short body, 2 little short arms, 2 pink eyes, and get this, folks, 3 legs. Ed, drop the next photo I have, and we'll leave this up here for a minute. 3 legs, that's interesting because, if I think 3 legs, first thing comes to my mind is a mutant. Something that was accidentally made through either crossbreeding, chemical spill, biology, or something like that, and then or escaped from somebody's mad scientist lab. What do you think about that, Ed?
Anything's possible, right?
I mean, really, especially in the 70s, because biological warfare was a big thing back then. If they couldn't play with the nukes, they had to do the next best thing,
I mean, they just came back from the moon, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, you had Roswell 30 years before that.
Mm-hmm.
These other supposed crashes and stuff. And heck, for all we know, it could have been a creature from a UFO, dimensional rift or portal, if you believe that. Anything's possible. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about 3 episodes that occurred about this creature that was in Enfield, Illinois. All right, so you're ready to hear a little bit of stories, and then Ed's going to pop up occasionally here, some different photos. He's probably going to throw in a comment or 2 like he normally does, and we're going to take it and see where we go with this, okay? All right, here's the story. All right, during the early 1970s, something horrible stalked the small town of Enfield, Illinois. Although Illinois is already home to phenomena such as strange lights, phantom black panthers, and thunderbirds. I didn't know about that. I'll have to do a little research now. Something even stranger briefly haunted the people of this town. On April 25th of 1973, Harry McDonald was among the first to encounter this terrible aberration, the Enfield Horror. Now, if it was a short period of time, this makes me think either it was an escaped critter from a biological lab, came through a portal that might have went back, or it was somebody's pet creature from a UFO and they called it back and took it off. Possibilities, because it was only short term. It wasn't like a Bigfoot or a Yowie that's constantly in an area. You know what I'm trying to say? All right, let's talk about Henry McDaniel's encounter. At about 9:30 that night, McDaniel and his wife had returned home and were greeted by their 2 children, Lil and Henry. The kids proceeded to tell him a tale about how something had tried to get into the house by scratching on the door. Shortly thereafter, Henry was alerted to a particular scratching sound at his front door. He expected to see a dog or a cat, but what he met instead was far stranger. And it's like I said, what Henry found to his terror was a creature that had 3 legs on it, a short body, 2 little short arms, 2 pink eyes as big as flashlights. It stood 4.5 feet tall and was grayish colored. It was trying to get into the house. Harry was completely mortified by the sight of this horrible apparition, slammed the door, and rushed to grab his .22 pistol and a flashlight. Now, Harry proceeded to fire on the creature 4 times, and according to him, when I fired that first shot, I know I hit it. The beast hissed at him. Most sources say that it sounded rather like a wildcat, and proceeded to bound away in long leaps across the yard, eventually becoming lost McDonald's sight as it made its way toward the railroad in the cover of trees. He asserted that he had seen that thing cover 50 feet in 3 leaps. Stunned by the encounter, Harry proceeded to call the police. Upon investigation, the state troopers discovered a series of scratches in the siding of the house and footprints that were very similar to a dog's, but having 6 toes instead of 4. 2 of the tracks were 4 inches wide, while the print left by the 3rd toe was smaller. Many of the police force were skeptical about what McDonald seen, despite having just received news of an attack on a small boy just 30 minutes earlier. This creature had ripped at the child's clothes with claws on its arms, while the talons on the toes had shredded the kid's shoes. However, the police couldn't find any trace of the entity, so things cooled down for a minute. Now, it's interesting that it's made these leaps at a total of 50 feet in three giant leaps. You know, it's possible because of the legs. It's got very strong bounding legs, something like a frog. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because frogs can jump pretty far.
You know, comparatively to the size of their body, you know, it can go pretty good.
Yeah. You know, it makes me think frogs got sort of like short arms in a sense and big eyes. What is what's like a super mutated frog?
A gray.
Somebody went and put it, stuffed the sucker up on super steroids with radiation dose.
It could look like a extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
Big eyes, big head.
Yeah.
The webbing of the fingers.
Yeah. That's just an idea. As the story goes, once again he saw the creature loitering near the train tracks. This went on for several minutes until the entire entity casually bounced away into the night. McDaniel later said, "I saw something moving on the railroad tracks, and there it stood. I didn't shoot at it or anything. It started down on the railroad track. It wasn't in a hurry or nothing. Then after a word of the infield horror had gotten around, people began to flock to the small town in hopes of seeing it." You know, with the skin, makes me think of a form of dinosaur hide or thick. Now, 22 really, it may be good for a small dog, for dogs in some cases, or cats, but something like this, I just can't see it maybe doing anything to it except pissing it off. Hey, folks. All right. People are very enthusiastic, but they were also intrusive. They prompted the local sheriff, Roy Pochard Jr., to warn McDaniel about keeping his mouth closed, or he'd be forced to incarcerate McDaniel. Over the next few months, the crowds began to grow larger. With the larger crowds came increased alarm among the citizens of Enfield. Some among them were genuine monster hunters, where others were just hunters or thrill seekers with guns. This forced the sheriff's hand, particularly when he had to arrest 5 gun-toting hunters for shooting at a gray thing that ran through the woods. 2 of these hunters, Mike Mogul and Roger Terry, both from Elmwood, Indiana, both swore they had witnessed a gray monkey quickly moving through the underbrush. Sheriff Pochard made numerous threats against Harry McDaniel, which it would be noted had no effect whatsoever, who was convinced that there was something very strange going on. Shortly thereafter, once the frenzy of the hunters and tourists had died down, 4 more people saw the Enfield horror. Now, I guess from a distance it could look like a gray monkey with that type of head, in a comical way. But then again, I would think gray alien,
Yeah, I mean, there's one right there. It looks like it's standing in the road. A monkey has a tail, so it looks like it's got a tail with the wide shoulders and skinny waist, and they stand up like that. So you could relatively plausibly see something like that.
Especially
depending
at
upon conditions, hazy, fog, rain,
low light,
whatever. Right. Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of sunlight, moonlight or something.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to talk about Rick Rainbow's encounter. On Sunday, May 6th, Rick Rainbow, then the director of a radio station, WWKI, in Kokomo, Indiana, was searching an area with 3 friends when they saw something that was 5.5 feet in height, gray, stooped over, running through the woods near an abandoned house, which it was reported was nearby McDaniel's home. The entity moved with unnatural speed, quickly vanished from the 4 men's sight. However, Rick Rainbow claimed to have recorded the creature's eerie shriek as it ran away from them on a tape recorder. Despite investigations by world-renowned cryptologist Lauren Coleman, who is said to have heard the creature's cries, the attention of the sightings eventually died down, and the creature hasn't been seen since. Lauren told the press, "I've traveled to Enfield, interviewed the witnesses, looked at the siding of the house and of the Enfield monster, had damage, heard some strange screeching, banshee-like sounds, and walked away bewildered." Now, there's one more thing about this. Apparently, there was another sighting. And this was in the 40s in another locale. Mount Vernon creature. Between the years of 41 and 42, there was a string of similar sightings in the small village of Mount Vernon, which is iconically less than 40 miles away from Enfield. These encounters involved a mysterious leaping beast that terrorized the local people and is supposedly responsible for animal deaths and mutilations in the region. Locals called the creature the Mount Vernon Monster and described it as being vaguely baboon-like in appearance and able to leap anywhere from 20 to 40 feet in a single bound. However, this creature is likened more to the devil monkey than the Enfield monster, but is a possibility that this was, in fact, the same creature. Talking about a devil monkey, it's possible these are both the same creature.
Devil monkey.
Because like you were saying about the tail, the third leg looking like a tail.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and you look at the picture, again, depending upon light, I mean, if it's right in front of you, it might be a little different. Because that, turn the lights on, boom, it looks like that, like a T-Rex.
And right there, kinda. I mean, if you're not looking at it right, you would think that was a tail.
Yeah.
From these artist renditions.
Yeah. It looks like a T-Rex, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it looks like a baby reptile of some sort with a tail. I mean,
almost like a radioactive hairless kangaroo. Mm-hmm. That's what this thing looks like.
I hadn't thought about that.
Look at that thing. That's kangaroo all day. Pissed off, short arms, big old tail.
And the ears missing.
Yeah, ready to kick you. Or maybe they're laid back because it's aggressive.
Yeah, could be. I don't know how far a kangaroo can jump, but
they can jump really far, probably 50 meters in 3 steps.
So it could be about the same. This could be a creature similar like a kangaroo.
I bet you could at full stride. I bet you it would.
Biologists at the time playing with chromosomes that they shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
Crossed a reptilian with a kangaroo and got yourself a demon monkey.
I believe it, man. Hey, people have been trying weirder things, all sorts of, look at our food. They're trying things with food. And like, I understand, try to optimize a high yield. Like, I get that. But, at the same time should we be doing this? Like, just because you can, should you?
That's like in some people have crossed with the tiger with the lion and made a liger.
Liger.
Liger, okay?
Not that word.
I'm sorry.
A
I
liger.
apologize, folks. It may have sounded like something else, but
Well, a liger, too,
liger.
at the same time, though, a liger itself is 100% sterile.
yes.
And it cannot reproduce.
Right.
And they have all sorts of genetic anomalies and, pigmentation issues and that sort of thing.
But, it's like people are going to play with chromosomes and genes and see what they can do.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what they do with dogs to make smaller, bigger, changes in colors.
Look what they did in 1942 in Berlin.
Which object?
I mean, the Nazis.
Yes.
What the Nazis did, they would take twins. They would take the guts out of one of the twins and try to shove it in the other one and see if they would take. They try to sew people together, try to take brains out. They try to do all sorts of crazy stuff.
Tusks.
Yeah.
There was,
all sorts of stupid crap.
And there's no telling what they did on the level of early chromosome type testing with animals. The Russians experimented with transporting heads from one animal to another.
Absolutely.
And
Look what we're trying to do. We're trying to grow. That was a burp. Celsius sponsored that one. Listen, they were trying to grow human ears on the backs of mice
yeah,
less than 5 years ago. And, that's kind of...
you. Why? Yeah.
I mean, I get that sort of a little bit because, people who need, have prosthetic ears. Have you ever seen the ears that go on that are like magnetized? They right on there. I can see why they're trying to do that. And they're not hurting humans and, they are mice and PETA, whatever. You can, whatever. But I get that. But for things like this, would I put it past anybody's government, United States government, a weird scientist, I mean, we even took those Nazi scientists after World War II.
Operation Paperclip.
And they made NASA. So, anything to make make people more out there and to be ahead of the game, I get that, and 20 years after the World War II, pretty much, we landed on the moon. So there's that.
Yeah, but there's no telling what other science is being done. So deep black it'd be called.
Oh yeah,
That,
more than we could imagine. Way more than we can imagine.
I mean, the Russians at one time were extremely the worst. Apparently, United States, as good as we say we are, I'm sure we've got so much black, dirty laundry that it's not even funny when it comes to medical practices, genetic experiments, hybridization, chimera experiments. I mean, back in the 70s and 80s, there was you've heard of the National Enquirer.
Well, yeah, man.
You've probably read some of their some of the articles they put out there. Just
Oh, it's crazy,
Yeah.
man. Yeah,
I
it's
mean-
like Bozo. No, hold on. What was the name? Bonzo.
Bonzo.
It would be like Bonzo is the love child of Elvis and somebody else. The Mexican wolf people, and Elvis had Bonzo, and that's why it has to be stored in the White
or
House.
a woman,
Or,
had-
with
had
Ronald Reagan.
child
and
with a Bigfoot, or talk about the government making super soldiers and
oh yeah.
cloning super athletes and things like that.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And then you see it in science fantasy on TV, and it's like, where did they get the idea?
Yeah, I mean, look at Star Trek back in the day. Inventions that were like years and years ago.
Yeah.
That are real now. Flying cars, from the Jetsons, Star Trek.
Communicators, basically
right.
our cell phones.
It looked like dude flipped open a Motorola brick and was talking in it on Star Trek. And 1968, 69 around there somewhere.
Our
And,
iPads and
oh yeah.
stuff like that, and smartphones and all these other devices coming along. I mean, I just can't wait to see what the next turn's going to be.
Well, start watching the movies and then count 20 years.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
probably what it'll be.
Yeah, probably so. All right, folks, thanks for listening, and we'll see what we can dredge up for 2 weeks from today. We'll be back on the 22nd. Ed's going to be out of town next week, and so I'm going to take a break and do a little research and indulge in my private hobby of painting miniatures. Yeah. So, see us back here on 22nd. Enjoy, be safe, and have fun. I hope y'all had a good 4th. I did. I know Ed did. He got to spend time with his boys. And y'all be good. So signing off from Easley is Ed and I. Good night.